right, what's up, guys? So, in this episode, brand new episode, we're not going to talk about some crazy, nonsensical stuff. We're going to talk about something practical. So, we're talking
Oh,
about parenting.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, is parenting not crazy?
Oh, yeah.
Can
I
be
mean,
crazy as well.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not a parent, so I guess you'll have to say. But so we're going to talk about parenting from a non-parent and a parent. So you're mostly just going to be hearing from him, and then I'm just going to be asking him questions and kind of challenging his thoughts. And yeah, let's see what this goes. But right now, first question, I guess, with parenting. How old were you when you became a parent?
I was 29 or 30, I think.
29, 30, and then mom was like,
29.
mom was
She
20,
was,
27.
yeah.
Okay, cool. And did you feel ready when you became a
Oh,
parent?
no,
No, eh?
not at all. No, it took me a long time because when I became a dad, I was thinking, I'm still a child. Am I a dad? It was a very strange feeling, and I took some time to make myself ready for that. It's
Hmm.
yes,
Do you think
that's
it's possible to ever be ready for parenting?
that's an interesting question, but I remember we were in Dubai and we were a friend of us was visiting us and you were I think 5 or 6 years old. I don't remember how old were you that time, and he saw us and he, I remember his comment and he said, "You guys don't look like father and son. You know, you look like friends."
Hmm.
You know, the way you talk, the way you communicate, nobody can tell that you. And I think that's the case right now as well, right? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I could definitely never look at you as my dad. I think,
Okay.
yeah, with a dad needs to have a little bit of superiority and authority. I think you're
Oh, I
just
have no authority, you
you're
mean?
you're like a cousin or something. That's
Okay.
that's what I consider. that's
Yeah,
that's what I
okay.
consider. But yeah, but sometimes all relationships are different. There's no good or bad unless it becomes like toxic. As long as
Yeah,
it's not toxic, then
exactly.
I think
Yeah,
it's good.
yeah, that's true. Okay, I need to exercise some authority over you then. Okay.
Yeah. Now, so talking about the concept of love, how is it different? How did your perception of love change from when you were just a young guy in your 20s, mid 20s, um, compared to when you became a dad? Like, how did you sort of develop a new sense of love for yourself, and what did that look like for you?
Well, when you see a newborn baby and you know it's like a miracle. It's such a cute innocent being coming in your life and you feel so much, you automatically feel so much love for that newborn baby, and so it's like a miracle. It's like, and you see the actions and the innocence in that, and it's an amazing feeling which cannot be described in words.
Cool, cool, cool. And how is, I guess, so obviously I think, you haven't really raised me, the same as how your parents raised you.
Yeah.
So how do you understand what type of love or what your definition of love looks like compared to what you've seen before?
Well, love, true love has to be unconditional.
Hmm.
um, I think many people I've seen, they don't even understand what love is. If you're putting some conditions, then that's not love.
Hmm.
That's a business transaction or that's something give and take. So for me, true love is always unconditional. And if you so with parenting, I've seen many parents, they put conditions in their love as they expect certain behavior from their child. They expect their child to study, to do all the things, to behave well, to behave in certain way, and as long as the child is following that order, then the parents show love.
Hmm.
uh, I think it's a reminder for the parents, if any of you parents are listening, You have to make sure that the love for your child is unconditional. You have to love your child regardless of he do good things or he or she, or do bad things, or study or not to study. Your love should always be there, and it's not only your love should always be there, but your child should understand this. This is more important, how your child perceives, right? Your child should understand that, love is unconditional. Whatever mistake your child does, your love will still be there, and you're there for your child.
Yeah, so it seems like unconditional love is just a natural state of just being in love.
Oh yes,
And then
that's true.
the way it gets corrupted is through outside forces and through other, perceptions or other versions of love that are not really love. Because love is it's one thing. It's not, it's not one or the other. It's just love. And unconditional love is basically just love. It's not
Exactly.
there's no such thing as narcissistic love or empathetic love. It's
Exactly.
just one term.
Exactly. That's, yeah, very well said. Yeah.
Cool. So obviously, with a parent-child relationship, you need to develop a level of respect and authority for that relationship to work. So within the bounds of unconditional love, how do you develop yourself as a role model, and how do you set yourself as someone that is respectable enough for that child to accept your love?
So, yeah, so loving your child doesn't mean that, he has the full, you can do whatever the child wants to do. You need to set up rules and boundaries and set of punishments as well. And you need to communicate to your child that, okay, if you break this rule, you get this punishment. You can express that, okay, I love you, I hate to punish you,
Hmm.
but if if you break this rule, you'll this will be the consequence of that,
Hmm.
right?
I think, well, I mean, obviously, I'm not a parent, but I've heard different psychologists and neuroscientists talk about parenting. And one, I guess, the best way to sort of punish or discipline a child is not necessarily make it sound like it's coming from you. Make it sound like it's coming from them. So, for example, if you have a kid that's not going to school, and you don't just punish the child and hey be like, hey, listen, if you don't go to school, I'm gonna slap you, or I'm gonna take away your video games, or I'm gonna take away your phone. You kind of have a conversation with them, and then you kind of ask them, okay, so do you think going to school is important for you? Why or not? Okay, do you think having friends is important? Do you think the career, your future that you're trying to aim towards is important? Do you think it's important? Do you think it's in line with school? Yes or no? Okay, so if you're telling me that school is important and you're not going to school, what does that tell me? It tells me that you're not serious about your goals, right? And if I want to be helping you with your goals, I'm going to be holding you accountable. Sometimes I'll have to punish you, but sometimes I don't. But do you understand why I have to punish you? Do you see like that is a little bit more effective than some people just saying, hey, if you don't do this X, then I'm gonna punish you.
Yeah, exactly. I agree that's more effective. But another point I want to say is that many parents see the symptoms. The root cause might be totally different,
Hmm.
because if your child is not going to school, there might be some other deep reason for that,
Hmm.
right? Maybe he's bullied at school, or maybe there's some other problem.
Hmm.
So you need to identify the root cause instead of just addressing the symptoms.
So how do you identify the root cause?
Yeah, that's a very interesting and an important question. So I think you need to create an environment where your child is open and feels safe to express his or her emotions,
Hmm.
right? So, because expressing emotions is the most important thing, I cannot emphasize enough on that. Because if your child is not expressing the emotions get suppressed in yourself, and or if anyone, if we also don't express our emotions, and they get inside our body, and it creates all diseases and problems, and all kind of discomforts and all the bad things.
Hmm.
So you need to create an environment where your child is feel safe, feel open to express the emotions, and you know, and whatever the emotions are, many parents, they discourage their children. Like if the child is crying, they say that, hey, don't cry. Especially I've sometimes heard your mother saying that you're crying like a girl, man up. Yeah. So you need to tell your child that it's okay to cry, it's okay to feel bad, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay, right?
Cool.
So
I think another thing with emotions is that a child only expresses emotions to the extent that he sees his parents expressing emotions. So, for example, if I'm a guy and then I look at my dad, for example, because I can relate to my dad more than my mom because we're biological males, obviously. And if I see my dad not expressing emotions or having a smile all the time and staying strong and composed, then to be like him, I'm gonna think that okay, maybe crying and expressing emotions is probably a weakness. Then maybe it's more feminine. Maybe it's not, it's not the person I'm trying to be. So, do you think an extent of expressing emotions also comes from how parents model
yeah,
themselves as well?
100%, because children see their parents as their role models. So and yeah, I mean, the things which you as parents want to instill in your children, you have to demonstrate by, not by lecturing the child, but by showing them, by being a role model, right? And uh, I remember sometimes I used to get lectured by my dad, and I used to hate that.
Yeah, you know,
So, so children never try to lecture your children.
that's a
Just
good point
be
because
yeah, be a role
lectures
model.
lectures actually almost never work.
Oh yeah,
Because
never works.
the
Yeah,
reason being is because a child is not going to copy or they're not going to emulate what you say. They're going to emulate what you do.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
if you're lying and cheating and doing terrible things and you're preaching to me that hey I should be good
yeah,
and I should pray to
yeah,
God every single day and I should
yeah.
be moral, then the chance of that working is not going to be
Exactly.
effective.
Yeah.
But jumping back to the role model side of things, I know you said that parents need to be role models. They need, in order for them to be effective role models, they need to create an environment. They need to create their own character as well to become the role model in the first place.
Yeah.
I find that nowadays, especially for a lot of young men and young women as well, there seems to be a lack of role models. Right? People they're kind of looking outwards outside of their household for guidance. There's a lot of male influencers on YouTube and social media and some actors, some celebrities. There's a lot of like men, for example, that young men like myself are gravitated towards listening to, and those people, those influencers, 9 times out of 10, they don't really agree with what the parents are telling them.
Yeah.
So what's causing this disconnect, and what's causing this lack of role models, and what's causing this lack of direction that kids are supposed to get from their parents when they're not getting it?
Yeah, I think it's the reason is basically the same which we talked about, because either the parents have not demonstrated or have not shown that their love for the children is there. It's an unconditional love for them, or they haven't created a safe environment for the children to communicate and to express their emotions, or to have an healthy communication, or um, asking questions. Sometimes I've seen asking questions, children ask questions which their parents cannot answer, and they're discouraged. So uh, so all of these factors contribute to this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times, just to kind of counteract that point, a lot of times, kids ask their parents questions like, okay, why do we have to go pray in the mosque? Why do we have to go to church? Why do we have to go to this person's house? Why do we have to go see friends and family, on the weekends? Or why do we have to travel back home and see family there? And why do we have to do certain things? 80% of the time, these questions never go answered. They get shut down by the parents, and they're like, "Don't ask questions. You'll understand later. You're too young to understand." Or it's just like, "Just shut up. Just don't ask me questions. Just do as we say." And a lot of times it's like that trust kind of diminishes over time because if
Yes.
you're the person I'm looking to get all the answers from, then if you're not giving me the answers, I'm just gonna go look somewhere else for the
Exactly,
answers.
exactly, and many times it's actually the cycle because we as parents, our parents have done the same things with us. When we asked questions, we were discouraged. So the cycle goes on, and we do the same things with our children, and then you'll in turn do the same things with your children. But we have to break this cycle, and we have to create this environment where we encourage these questions, and we encourage curiosity among children, and yeah, so that's
And I mean, just to play devil's advocate for parents, obviously parenting, I can tell is, it's not an easy thing. It's a very probably the most difficult thing. Like compared to your job, like
oh
would you
yes.
say parenting is harder than what you do at work?
Yeah, parenting is much harder,
Yeah,
yes.
it's
Yeah,
probably the most difficult job.
yeah,
Especially when the child is very young as well too.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
And especially when you have more than one child,
Oh
right?
yes, yeah,
So
that's true.
obviously I guess an argument that I kind of made up in my head, and maybe if it's I don't know if it's true or not, but the reason why a lot of parents they don't feel the need to explain or they don't have the time to explain or answer all these questions is because they're so occupied with all these responsibilities and all this mental baggage and things on their plate. It's like answering a question that might seem stupid to you as a parent, but for the kid it's not stupid. It just seems like, oh, it's like, yeah, it's not even worth answering. Just shut up and just listen, just do as I say, right?
I think we have to be very careful of how the child is perceiving things. Many times parents say that or believe that if they're spending more time at their job or their business, they think that we are doing this for our children, right? But the child might not perceive it in this way, right? So you have to be aware of how your child is taking these things, because and this will affect the child's life. The way and you always need to give your child importance and priority. Many times it happens that um, you get a call from your work or from your business, and your child comes and asks you something, and you just ignore your child, and you say that, oh yeah, go away, I'm busy, right? So the child might perceive that, not might, I'm sure the child perceives that, okay, I'm not important for my dad or my mother, right? And this goes a long way, especially if the child is young. This thing will remain in the child's mind that, okay, I'm not important for my parents, and this would be very harmful.
And how do you? I guess a lot of parents assume that their child knows that what they're doing is in their best interest. But with kids, it's like
No, they
they
don't.
they almost never know.
They never know.
It's like
They never know. So,
logically
yeah.
and emotionally, it's like, okay, if my dad is away from the house, because you lived in a different country for a while, so I had to live our whole family had to live without you for a few months here and there because you were working in the Middle East, and it's like
And Europe as well.
and
Spain.
Europe as well, yeah. So the child obviously, the child would miss their dad. The child would kind of be sad sometimes if the dad's not there, and the mom would tell him, okay, but logically speaking, your dad is doing this because he loves us and he wants to support us. But logically speaking, that's what you're saying. But internally, that's not how I feel. Because if he
True.
really loved us, he would actually be here, and then you would figure out some ways
Yeah,
to
and go and play with me, and
yeah.
have fun with me. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's true.
So the common disconnect is obviously communication. So communication is the
Exactly.
biggest thing in all relationships, and like, mom and parent relationships, families, like girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, um, you know, co-workers. Communication is the biggest thing, and even this problem with parenting, it doesn't seem so complex. It's very simple actually.
Yeah, it's
There's just a lack of communication.
yeah. I mean, exactly. It's lack of communication, and yeah, and as I said earlier, if you just take care uh, of the emotions of your child, and you have the true unconditional love, then it becomes easy,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. So moving on to the next topic, I guess. So once you've figured out the basics. So once you know how to communicate with your child, you know how to love unconditionally, you know how to become a role model, how to look out for them. Now, once the kid is growing up, once they're in their teenage years, once they're a little bit older, um, a lot of there's a lot of talk about success. There's a lot of talk about success, in school, success in the workplace, success in business, success, later on as they become parents as well. How do you ensure success for the child without being selfish in your own terms?
Yeah, it's a good question. Many parents, they are selfish. They try to impose their own dreams on their children, which, they might have some goals and targets of their own life which they haven't achieved, and they try to impose on their children. Um, I would say that you should allow children to choose their own dreams, to follow their own passions, even if you know that okay they will fail in that. Let them fail. Failure gives them more important lessons. Failure, failing at something, it's great. It's a great learning. So let them fail, let them experience life in their own way. And especially these days, if your child is a teenager, believe me, your child, in many areas in life, your child knows much better than you. So yeah, this is the mistake many parents do. They believe that since they're the parent, they're old enough, they have experienced life more, they always know more. But that's I'm telling you, that's not the case. And like, I know in many things you know much better than I do, and I normally ask you a few few questions, right?
Yeah,
To
mostly everything I know is is a lot more. But
Nah, that's not true.
yeah, okay. In some things. But yeah, I mean that's a good point. So I guess just to play devil's advocate with failure, it's sometimes failure can be really costly for parents. Like I can't I can't just as an 18-year-old kid, you can't just give me $100,000 and expect me to start up all these businesses, and obviously it's hard for you to trust me to fail. So how do you create an environment for kids to learn how to fail fast, and then learn how to bounce back from failure? Because you also have to understand that in school, even though if parents are very supportive about failure, school is not very supportive about failure. School is actually very, it teaches you that failure is actually a bad thing. There's a lot of things that you need to be successful, which school kind of, you know, misprograms you with. And that stuff is like failure, making mistakes, collaboration. How do you kind of create an environment for failure to be acceptable and failure to be embraced?
Yeah, some failures might be costly. So it depends on the situation, or depends on the task, or you can see you can have different scenario. You can communicate with your children, and you can have different scenarios laid out, that okay, the cost for failing is this much, or uh, it all depends on the case, and you, in some cases, you can allow the child to take calculated risks. And in some cases, if the risk is too high, then you can tell your child that okay, no, find some other option. This if you fail, it's going to be very costly. It's not an option. So
I guess it starts small, because if you're a kid, they have to learn how to fail at a
yeah,
small scale, and then
yeah, exactly.
once they're old, and once they're maybe investing, or if they're like basically playing with money,
Yeah,
then they would be learning how to fail at a younger age, so
yeah,
that they can handle
exactly,
the big failures later on.
exactly. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, I fully agree.
Cool, cool, cool. And just to wrap things up, there was this quote by Patrick Bet-David that he said in a podcast I was listening to. So he said that three patterns of ultra successful people, and he said he doesn't really know why this is, but he just noticed these three things in common between ultra successful people. So, number one, they experience unconditional love from a person. Number two, they experience massive pain from a person they loved. And number three, they chose their enemies wisely. So basically, just learning how to compete and being competent. So what are your thoughts on this? Unconditional love from a person, and then they receive massive pain from the person they loved. How true, or in your experience, how true do you think this is?
Okay, so unconditional love we talked about, which goes wrong way, long way, not the wrong way. Sorry,
Yeah.
did I say the wrong way? Okay. So, yeah, I mean, especially for so we are talking about parenting much about like teenagers since you're teen. How old are you? Okay. But parenting is most important when the child is from a newborn till 7 years of old, 7 years old, because that's the time um, when your brain, when your subconscious programming is happening. And after 7 years old, it's very difficult to change. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult to change your subconscious programming. And this subconscious programming goes a long way, goes your entire life. So if from 1 to 7 years old, if a child is conditioned that he's loved, he or she is, it's and like you're enough, you're good, you're smart, you're intelligent. If your parents and your teacher tell you this, and that becomes your programming, then it's most likely that you'll be very successful, right? And you'll have self confidence and self belief, and and you'll have the belief that you're strong enough, you're good enough, you're loved. Then chances are that you'll be a very successful person.
Okay. And the second point
Sec-
was
yeah.
he said that they experience massive pain from a person that they loved. So do you think pain is essential in
No,
parenting?
I don't think so. But massive pain, actually, what happens is it's the hard way, actually. But if like the first point of unconditional love, that's enough. If some people or some children don't, they lack unconditional love, then it's a negative way than facing too much pain from your love from the person who loved. That's more likely a narcissist case, where a child feels that you're not enough, and the child develops this feeling that, okay, I'll prove to my parent that I am good enough, and it creates this fire, it's this burning desire. But it's okay, you'll be successful, fine, but then you'll still have that grudge, or you'll still have that feeling, you'll grow up with that feeling that it's I'm not enough. And even after attaining that success, since it's programmed in your subconscious mind that you're not good enough or you're not capable enough, you'll still, after even after achieving that success, you'll still not feel it, right? So it's a it's
Okay.
a hard way, or it's a negative way to achieve that.
Cool.
What
So
was the third point?
the third point was just about, well, he's basically just promoting his book.
Oh,
It's
okay.
called Choose Your Enemies Wisely. So the third
Okay.
point was they chose their enemies wisely, and they competed against someone that brought the best out of them. But that's like
Right.
not you don't compete with your child really, So it's
Well, but there is a competition. I think parents, they develop some kind of a competition between the siblings, which is, I would say, it's a very bad thing.
oh, okay.
Because why it's bad, because if you are having, like many parents say that, okay, your brother or your sister, she's very good at her studies, or she got full marks, and so it means that you are not good enough, right? So this especially if you are like less than 7 years old, then this thing will be in your programming that you're not good enough, or you're not intelligent enough. Or many parents say that you're dumb, and your brother is more clever, your brother is intelligent, and you're dumb, you're not getting good marks. So the intention of the parents here is to create a healthy environment, but I feel that it's, it's very wrong. It gives the wrong message to to the child, and it affects the whole life.
I think that's competition. So competition is bad between siblings. Or I mean, creating competition from the parents' perspective is bad.
It's
It's
totally bad.
it's bad.
Yes, yeah,
And
and I've also seen like I've also seen some cases where like adults, 45, 50-year-old adults, and they think that they're ugly. And if you go deep, then you understand that in their family, in their siblings, some other brother or sister was considered more beautiful or more handsome. So this thing goes all your life, that you have this belief that, okay, I'm not beautiful enough.
I think that's well. I mean, another example of that is, I mean, I worked with a guy, my mentor in my last job. He's also very driven by competition between his brothers. I don't know if his parents created this competition, but he basically told me that his motivation, the chip on his shoulder, was to outshine his brother in everything. Because growing up, his brother was like around the same age as him, but his older brother, he outshined him in everything. He was better at sports. He had more girls attracted to him. He had better grades. He got into a better school. So he was just like the guy that was considered, the alpha, between the two. And looking back at it, my mentor tells me that, oh yeah, I've crushed my brother in everything now, because that was his motivation to rise to the top, to be very aggressive in business, to be very successful, and he was driven by this ego between him and his brother. So I mean, sometimes it could be good, but it also, at the end of the day, it's still very unhealthy, I'd say, because it's if you don't happen to be successful, then you end up in a more depressive
Exactly.
type of state.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, creating these kind of competition, it's very harmful. It might have some advantages, but the harm it does, it far outweigh the bad consequences it might get.
Yeah, I mean, okay, cool. That's pretty much all the questions I had. But by the looks of it, even though I'm not a parent yet, parenting doesn't need to be painful. It doesn't need to be hard. It doesn't need to be, competitive. It doesn't need to be toxic. You can have a totally perfect child and have a perfect relationship without doing much negative.
Yeah.
And what's I guess, your final message for like parents or people that are like, you know, that feel that they're not ready, or feel that maybe they're not doing the best job that they could?
If they're not ready,
Yeah,
if they're not ready, don't bring the child. Don't bring a child in the world.
don't
If
bring a
you're
child.
not, if you're not ready, yeah,
Yeah.
because it's a huge responsibility. If you're not ready, chances are that you'll make the life of the poor soul a hell. So better not.
So I guess in practical terms, like being ready is like obviously financial stability. You and your partner need to have a healthy relationship, and so that you guys can bring a child into this world. Is that how you define being ready?
Well, the most important thing, which I said, it's having unconditional love for your child. And you cannot have love for your child if you don't have love for yourself. So, if you cannot love yourself, you cannot love anyone else, whether it's your child or your spouse or anyone, right? So, if you hate yourself, then don't, please don't, don't bring a child to the world. The child would suffer.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like pretty straightforward advice, but you'd be surprised to see a lot of people still do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I mean, I think I have a pretty good grasp of what parenting is like. You know, I think hopefully whoever's watching this probably has a good idea of this too.
Yeah, let's
But
see.
other than that, I guess that's all for today. We'll probably see you in the next video then.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.